Are you at that point where you know you need to declutter your home, but you don't know where to start? Or maybe you've somewhat started, but that's as far as you've gotten? Well, me too. And lucky for us, Megan has perfected this process. Join us as Megan explains and breaks down her easy to follow 3-step process for decluttering. I don't want to give too much away, but I can say from personal experience, her system works. Megan helped me declutter my closet last year, and I've managed to keep it somewhat in order, which is a feat in and of itself. During this episode, Megan and I also discuss the impact clutter has on us, and not just personally. There are countless studies that show eliminating clutter improves our productivity, reduces stress and anxiety. Plus, it's proven that our kids simply just don't play with more than 20 toys. So grab a seat. Ultimately, we hope this episode gives you the encouragement you needed to tackle that room, closet, or junk drawer. Let's get into it.
You're listening to the We Need to Talk podcast, and we are your hosts, Salem Shannon and Megan Beaver.
Two millennial moms, ambitious professionals, an interior designer, and a business executive.
Join us for conversations that unravel all the things that not only hold us together, but sometimes fall apart.
If you're looking to laugh, cry, and be inspired while keeping it real,
you're in the right place. Grab your drink. We need to talk.
Hey, Megan.
Hi, Salem.
How are you doing?
Doing great. It's
We might
2024.
we might edit this whole part out. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, today what are we chatting about? We're chatting about decluttering. And I mean, this is right at the beginning of the year. Everybody's still focused on, how they could reset for the year, things that they can change, things that they can improve. And so what we're going to talk about is decluttering and
Yes.
all the good things about decluttering. And I can definitely say you are much better at it than I am. I have a tendency to be a little bit of a hoarder. And you have helped me though, at least in a couple areas of my house declutter. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, just to get us started, why decluttering matters and why it should be something we all incorporate into our lives. I mean, there's definitely like tons of data and studies done about decluttering and simplifying. And I don't want to go as far as to say like minimal lifestyle, because I think that takes it to the extreme. But why decluttering can be so good for us. And so one big thing that, I mean, I have a ton of different, stats and facts that we could talk about, but one thing that we kind of highlighted together was a cluttered kitchen creates like a chaotic environment. And there's an Australian study, an experiment done on this where people ate twice as much like snacks and cookies when the environment was chaotic. And so extra stuff leads to the chaos, which leads to us overeating, which is not a good thing, especially at the beginning of the year. If we're trying to slim down or cut back in any way when it comes to our eating, or just in general be healthier, like snacking and cookies, definitely not a good thing.
Yeah, it's not good for your energy. And I think that translates to any space of a house, right? Beyond just the kitchen. I even have a lot of experience with this on both sides in workplaces as well. So decluttering and being in a cluttered environment is just no bueno, period.
Yeah. Yeah. Another one is, of course, we have small kids, so toys. So both two organizations, SimKids and Premium Joy, surveyed parents of ages 3 through 12, and the majority of kids play with 5 to 10 toys, and that's it. Montessori teaching says kids play with 10 to 20 toys, and the average American child has somewhere in the range, like results from all of these different studies kind of had from the data I found online, had a range the average American child has anywhere from 150 to 493 toys.
That's insane.
Nuts. So crazy. And so I don't know if that counts like individual Lego pieces or if that means like that many figurines and parts, and who knows? Who knows? As a ton of toys that it's been proven that they can't play with that many at one time.
No.
So that's interesting. And then another fact that we saw, the National Association of Realtors, they say that decluttered and staged homes sell faster and at higher selling prices, which I thought was interesting. I mean, we know that, staging has been like a thing for a while, and you see it on all of the HGTV shows and things like that. Like, I feel like it's more common knowledge these days to say a staged home is going to sell faster than an unstaged home, but also a decluttered home is going to sell faster and at a higher price than one that's not, or that one that has, a lot of clutter. So
isn't that interesting? Because like, as women, especially when we're constantly looking for inspiration, or we're on Pinterest or TikTok or things like that, we're drawn to those much more decluttered, staged visuals than the clutter.
That would be kind of like our ideal life, like setup. Oh, there's no clutter, it's nice and clean. Of course we would like to move into that, until we bring our stuff with us.
Yeah, it's really funny. I actually hadn't heard almost any of those stats, but I can believe every single one of them. When we downsized, we definitely fell to that whole like 5 to 10 rule with our kids and their spaces. I think that the staged home look, I operate better in it. So I'm excited to dig in.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So let's kind of get started talking about the kinds of methods for decluttering that we each have. So mine is almost non-existent. So therefore, you are going to talk about your method for decluttering and what that means.
I probably need a name for my method. I do think I have an inspiration. It's a TV show called The Home Edit, and it really helped me define how I've always been when it comes to decluttering and organization of a home. And it's really this idea of like, you have to purge and release things before you reset and feel renewed. So it's very much like this formula of pulling everything out, purging it, looking through it, resetting what you keep, deciding what you add, kind of thing. And that's where you get to start to feel renewed. So the decluttering process itself is a journey, not a destination. And it's not like this one-time thing. It's always like a rinse and repeat in different seasons of life. But I am very much on the boat of, we are getting rid of shit. That's the process, and that's the approach.
Yeah. So. Whereas I, on the other hand, have a tendency to say, I'm so guilty of we might need it one day, or, what if, et cetera, something happens and I need this. Yeah, that I'm horribly guilty of that. I'm so glad.
And that one day comes, Salem, and what do you do? Instead of using the thing, you go buy something else for it. Like that is a true that is a true pattern of people, is they're like, yeah, I'm going to use that one day, but then the minute that it comes, they totally forget that it's in their storage or in their stuff somewhere, and they're like, I need to buy something to do this. And one more thing,
another one of the stats, like I was just kind of doing my homework for this episode, and another one of the stats has to do with time savings. And I know that isn't really one of the ones that we talked about, but when you go to try to find something and you can't find it, because you've got so much clutter, that's kind of a problem. And so that makes me think about, in the event that you need something, usually you need it in a pinch. And if you're keeping everything and you're trying to find that thing that you saved, where was it? I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, let's start somewhere. Where are we starting today? You lead us.
So kind of, let's just say it, I don't know if you're decluttering in this moment right now or not. I mean, it was just the holidays. So we've all got excess stuff, like new things that were brought into our homes, unless somebody did like a trip or an experience or, something that didn't involve stuff. But for most of us, the holidays equal new things coming in the house. So are you going to be decluttering? And if so, I know that you don't necessarily tackle the entire house at one time. That's way too much. How do you go about decluttering? Like, what are like some very clear, simple steps, like step 1, step 2, step 3, that you can take us through? Let's just use the holidays as our example. We're trying to declutter in order to bring these new things in.
Yeah. I think so. I have 2 small children. I mean, they're not super small anymore. They're a little bit more independent. And decluttering had to actually happen prior to the influx of stuff, right? Or we know they're getting presents. It's not just an experience, like we gifted an experience, but like everybody else is buying them presents. And they're in this season of life where they like shoes and clothes and accessories. And so we had to purge prior to the presents. And for me, anytime I declutter or it's time to get rid of stuff and release stuff, is what I like to say, is everything has to come out. So knowing that they're going to get shoes and clothes, mostly because that's what they ask for, is cute shoes and cute clothes. And we did laundry right before the family holiday started. Well, we pulled everything out of the closet. Everything. We pulled all their clothes out of the closet and all their shoes out of the closet. And we went through them. And when it's time to declutter before that, we have to make 3 piles. And this is something that I do no matter what I'm decluttering or what I'm organizing, is pull everything out, all stitches of clothes, all shoes. And we're going to make a yes pile, meaning I'm keeping that because I love it. I wear it. It gets used. Yes. No means, first of all, you don't wear it, or you haven't worn it in a certain time period. For us, it's like 6 months just because kids grow so fast. But for myself, it's a year. A no pile means it's getting donated. And that means, like, even if you're like, it's cute. And I'm like, when's the last time you wore it? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, I do your laundry, so I know you haven't worn it in 6 months to a year. It's going in the no pile. And then there's the maybe pile, where it's like, I'm not sure yet. I kind of like it. And we put it in the maybe pile, because we're going to come back to that maybe pile later. But we did that with both of their closets and their shoes. And we had like 2 or 3 bags of donations at that point. And so pulling everything out and being prepared to know that it's going to take an hour or 2 and going through every outfit or every clothes and making sure they try them on to see if they're too small, making sure, or if they're too big or they don't like them anymore, so that there's a no and maybe pile. And that yes pile that's going back in will get organized when it goes back in. So that's kind of the first step of everything, is you got to pull every single thing out. And I think that applies no matter what you're doing, your kitchen cabinets, your bathroom drawers, your shoes, your anywhere you can, toys, all the things. You can apply it to all the things in life. So
nice. Okay, so now that first step was making your piles, pulling it all out, and you make your piles, then what happens? Like, when do you go back to that maybe pile?
Once the closet's empty, or the space that you're purging is empty, then you go back. First of all, you bag all your nose stuff up that you already have nose, because we don't want to look at it anymore. It's real easy for somebody that likes to hold on to stuff to be like, I want that black bag. I got space. No. Like, put it in a bag, out of sight, out of mind. And then we go to the maybe pile, and we start. It's kind of like therapy. You have to go through the pieces. You either have to, like when you and I did your closet, it's like you were trying them on. You were deciding if you still liked them, or were they just a little bit too tight, or was it, or are those jeans just a little too short, or okay, it's cute, but when are you realistically going to use it, wear it, have it on your body again, or have it in life, right? And the answer to that is hard, because it's like, but I might wear it. Okay, well, how many times are you going to go to a formal event? You're most likely still, say it's a formal wear. You're going to probably want to buy something new because that's been hanging in your closet and it's old. So put it to the no. Or if it's like, okay, this is a piece that is just practical, repeatable, like I'm gonna put it back into my yes. But a lot of times the maybes should become no's. Like it's just a process. They should become no's, and you just have to have that process with yourself. It also makes room for new stuff. So
I know we love to just fill up that hole that it created. Where I do.
Yeah.
Okay, then what? What happens next? Then you talked about a donation pile. So that means you're typically taking all your things and donating. You're not saving them. Are you selling on Facebook Marketplace? You selling your stuff, or you just, you got to get it out right then, or things might happen and it might come back in. So it's got to go.
Hot topic. I used to be a yard sale person. I recently said no more yard sales. Like, it's not worth it to me anymore. I would much rather, now, if there's large items, say we're purging our living room furniture, or we're purging very large use and expensive items, I may sell those. I may sell those on a secondhand marketplace. But as far as clothes and stuff goes, at this point, I would prefer somebody just get more use out of it. And I prefer to donate those things and those items. Or if they're just beyond wear and tears, they have to be trashed too. Like they just can't be used again. And so really I donate before I try to sell. And if it's a really big ticket item, that's when I sell. So it's kind of my process now. And I do not have any more yard sales. Yeah.
I know. I love a good yard sale, and we are historically yard sellers, but we usually don't have a yard sale every year. It's like once every 2 or 3 years. And so what I'm now dealing with is, okay, I got in the mood actually yesterday to clear out, and I had to, because my mother-in-law is going to come stay with us for a couple weeks while her hardwood floors get refinished. So that meant the downstairs bathroom really needed to get cleaned up. It was kind of like my storage overflow. And and so I've been saving stuff, and I keep telling Justin, we're going to have a yard sale this summer. And as I'm like slowly adding to that pile, I'm starting to realize, do I really have enough stuff for a yard sale? Because we are yard sale people, you got to have a lot of stuff for a good yard sale. Like, you don't want like crowds coming to your house, or you don't want to advertise on social media that you're having a yard sale and people come and there's like just measly little, like it's, it already looks picked over and it's 7 a.m. kind of stuff. Like you want it to be full. You want to have a ton of stuff. Like we could probably have
a variety.
I could give you a whole, like, what to do and what not to do on how to have a good yard sale. But so I'm starting to look at all my stuff and I'm thinking, am I going to have enough for a decent yard sale? Because I don't want to waste my Saturday. That's what it really comes down to. I don't want to waste my Saturday. If I don't have a ton of stuff to sell, I don't want to waste my Saturday, whole weeks prepping for this sale that I really don't have enough stuff to sell. And then by the end of your Saturday, you haven't made enough money to really justify your time. And you know what I mean? Like, you've got to really have a lot of stuff for it to justify your Saturday. I think that's what it comes down to. It always comes back to time. Isn't that interesting? But I think, so I'm looking at these piles in my basement now that I've moved from everywhere else in the basement into the studio. I've only touched it about 15 times. And I'm thinking, there's not enough. There's not enough stuff. And even if I went through and I purged my whole house again, am I going to come up with enough? And in the meantime, I've got these boxes of stuff in my way, and I just have to look at it every day when I'm down there. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So anyway, I guess I've got that going on in the back of my mind. This podcast as well.
And going back to your stat, it's just like, I know that I read through the stats that you sent me too. It's just like this feeling of the clutter produces this like stressful feeling. of like, even if you were to go down to your studio to try to relax, because that's one of your places to go down and like get creative, it would be type A or not, would be really hard to get into that headspace when you know you're looking at a mountain pile of yard sale stuff over here. And, might spark creativity for some people, but I've worked with many different personality types, and I don't think clutter has ever produced productivity or made someone better in the terms of like what they need to get done. So yeah.
So so let's just say somebody's, really thinking they need a reset for the new year. What are some tips that you would have for them, or like words of encouragement for them?
Ooh, yes. I think some tips are that you've got to break it down into bite-sized pieces. You're not going to declutter and organize your whole home in a day. Doesn't matter how small it is. Maybe make yourself a list of what you truly want to organize, and then prioritize those spaces. And know that like you need to probably commit half a day to or a whole day to those things. That would be one of my biggest tips, is because I'm the type of person that's like, I see this Pinterest project and we can do it in 24 hours. That is not true. Same goes for decluttering and organizing. It is not done in 24 hours. It is definitely a process. I would also say, like, once again, like I said at the beginning, is that where you live is to live versus storage. And we love our homes to be beautiful, but they're also not museums. They're like, you just have to be able to know what works for you, right? And so like, before going into this, like, you want beautiful things, but you also need practicality. You need something that's functional, but you also need to know where it's at, like quick access. I mean, people that listen to us, busy working moms, millennial women, people. So like, you got to be able to get to it quickly. So those are the things you got to think about when you start this process. And yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, when you helped me, the only thing we were working on was my closet. It's the only thing. When you helped me, we were just supposed to be working on the closet, and it took us a solid, and there was two of us. It was me pulling it out and having my responses, and then it was you asking the questions. So it was like you were my facilitator. So that helps. Even, having a second person, you work 3 times faster if there are 2 people doing the work versus doing it alone. In anything. I mean, especially, anyway, that's a different topic. But anyway, it was 2 of us working on it. And it still took us multiple hours just to go through my closet. And I don't have enough. I mean, I have a decent sized walk-in closet, but it's not huge. So yeah. And then the aftermath, I had to, bundle it all up. I had to take it, donate it, do whatever I was going to do with it. I took some of it and sold it at a consignment store. I do that. A lot of my good stuff, I take it to a consignment store and then they sell it for me, which is, I get a little bit more than if I were to sell it like at a yard sale, but I don't have all my time tied up trying to sell it on Facebook. And then I also, I get it out of my house.
Yeah.
And
that's
then
the release part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. If they don't sell it, they donate it.
You've got to let it go. And I think that's where you kind of like put that piece in a box before we move on, is like the feeling of releasing stuff. It's sometimes stressful because you're like, oh, but I had it for so long, or, oh, I love that piece so much. But it's very much a weight off your shoulders when you let it go and out the door. Like, you've got to get it out the door so that you can move on to the resetting piece of it, which is the step 2. But, for people who like to hold on to things, it's also a matter of like, we go through different seasons of life. And so like, you got to know that you're making space for that next thing. We all have wish lists. We all have things that we want to add or change. And maybe one of your rule of thumbs is that you've got to release something before you can receive a new thing. And so I would say that's just my final like pin in the whole release part of the process.
Yeah. Well, this time of year it's a good time to kind of talk about these things because you're wanting that refresh, that reset. And a good way to do that is to kind of just purge your home, the various areas of your home that tend to get the most over cluttered. The closet, the kitchen, the junk drawers, the kids' toys, kids'
Yep.
clothes. I mean, naturally, you're kind of forced to purge when you have small kids because they're constantly growing out of things. So, just if you have to get some of that out because they can't wear it anymore. And so that's kind of nice because you have to, but that doesn't mean you do that everywhere else in your home. So this time of year is it's a great time to talk about it. Plus, like I mentioned, the holidays, you're getting this big influx and not everyone has the forethought like you do, Megan, to say, I got to get rid of this because I know I'm going to bring new stuff in. So it's a good time to talk about it. And so it's been all over social media. And I've seen people throw out some really interesting tips. Like one person said that their goal this year is to eliminate like 2 items every day and put it
It's
in
ambitious.
their like purge pile. And then, periodically take that purge pile and donate it. Which I thought was like that's interesting because when you're thinking about your closet and you're thinking about donating 2 items or you're getting rid of purging 2 items out of your closet every day, that could get a little bit overwhelming. But if you're considering your whole house, little things in your closet, your junk drawers, like thinking about all the different spaces that you have, 2 items a day, I mean, it sounds kind of doable.
It is doable. I have to compartmentalize. So I unfortunately have to approach projects together. But for the person that doesn't have to do that, I think that's a great idea. Sometimes I know that this is wasteful, but sometimes maybe you should just throw it away too. Because it's real easy to go back to that pile. I'm just saying. Just saying.
I know. I know.
I also,
it is easy to go back to that pile. I promise.
And it's okay that there's an empty space for a while too, because that's how you learn what you want to put there. Like, it's okay that there is space. Like right now, I've just pulled everything down from Christmas. My kitchen shelves, I have open shelving. They're probably going to sit empty and unfinished for a week or so because I'm not sure how I want to reset and refresh it. So I'm going to live with it for a little bit to decide what needs to be on those shelves. And so I think that can be applied to anywhere, like your drawers. They can be a little more empty until you know how to reset them, or your closet can have some voids in it until you know what do you need to add to that closet. So it's okay.
That's true. That's true. I mean, one thing that I've taken extremely slow when we finally moved in here was decorating. Like, I didn't really decorate. I don't have hardly anything on my walls. And I've slowly gotten a couple pieces that I could probably take it or leave it and put those up just because it was so blank. But I think this year for 2024, I really want to try to collect more art that I can display. And so that's kind of something that I've thought about. But if I would have just like rushed out to Hobby Lobby or somewhere, Home Goods, and just picked up some stuff that I knew would aesthetically look good, I feel like I probably wouldn't have the personal connection to it that I know that I'll have with artwork. So
yeah,
I'm very excited to do that this year. I think just start collecting more artwork that I like, more original art, even if it's a print. Just because I think things that are made by somebody that you can have a personal connection with, like you meet them at an artist market or, something like that. I think that's so nice to have that kind of story up on your wall instead of, oh, I got that at Home Goods.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I don't put hardly anything in my house unless there's a meaning to it, which makes it hard because there are sometimes things that just sit empty. Same thing. My walls sit empty for a long time until the light bulb goes off for me one day. So it's okay. So let's recap releasing. Like, you got to get everything out, have your yes, no, maybe pile, get rid of the no, go through the maybe, be very intentional about it, and then be okay if there's space. Be okay to let the space sit for a while. I would say.
So besides being okay with just the empty spaces, do you have any other good advice about maintaining it?
Yeah, I mean, it's rinse and repeat. You constantly have to, you're going to have to constantly not let stuff get back in there. Everybody has a junk drawer. I have a junk drawer. Put it to the junk drawer, because eventually you got to deal with the junk drawer anyways. But like, don't just buy stuff because you feel like it's empty. Like, truly, like, be intentional with your money and with what you're going to buy before you put it back in there. And also, once again, like, I'm the kind of person that's like, okay, well, before you think that's what you want to buy, how about you live for a couple of weeks and start thinking about your wish list in your head? It's kind of like one of those things, especially with kitchen appliances being one of those. I think that's a really good way to look at it. Is if you're going to constantly need like an air fryer, okay, that's something that you're going to need to purchase, but you need to know where to put it. Probably going to need to make room of something, get rid of some cake plates, get rid of the old deep fryer you might have, get rid of like that George Foreman, so that you can make space, because you never use those things for that air fryer, because you're like, I would use that every day. But walk through that practice for a while before you truly go out and buy something else. Don't buy just to buy. I don't know if that even answered your question, but that would be that's how I practice that anyway, is I wait to buy something before there's like a need for it over and over and over again. Not just once, but it's like, oh, I still need something that's like, an air fryer is a quick way, and it's a purchase I would make over and over again. It's like, oh, I could easily cook my veggies and chicken real quick without having to put them in an oven and the longer time. Like, it was a need over and over and over again before I filled it. So
I know
yes.
you've talked to me multiple times about the air fryer, and I almost bought one on Black Friday. I didn't do it because I just thought of how big it was and what was I going to do with it. But yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about, any kind of like words of encouragement, because it can be a daunting task, especially if you have a lot of stuff and decluttering hasn't been part of your normal, routine every quarter, or, twice a year. I'm not sure how often, that I think that varies person to person. But at least kind of like a once a year reset, I think is a good idea if you've never considered doing any kind of major purge.
Yeah, it's definitely personal. Mine's constant. Like, throughout the year, I'm constantly doing this process in different areas of my home, depending on the season, depending on the need. But yeah, I would say just remember, like, it's going to be okay, and it's a process. It doesn't happen in one day.
Yeah,
But once you get to
absolutely.
this point and you've started that practice over and over again, life is a lot easier to live because you're not constantly doing it. It might just be every so often, right?
Well, and to consider, I was thinking about, just talking about practice, the more often you do it, the better you'll get at it. When you do the first time you do it, you might still try to hang on to too much, but the
Yep.
more often you go through that process, the easier it'll be. And, just the more practice that you get in, just like anything else, more practice you put in, the better you'll get at it. So, that is
Yeah.
one thing I've personally experienced. I mean, I'm still a hoarder in some ways, but I have gotten better at it the more I practice it.
Well, let's talk about number 2, which is reset, because that was just step 1.
Oh Lord.
So number 2 is resetting those things that your yes pile, right? Like, you've got to put the yes stuff back, but you don't
That's
want to just
true.
like throw it back in the closet or throw it back in the drawer. Organize it. And that doesn't mean alphabetical. That doesn't necessarily mean, color coordinated, but I tend to love the order of that type of thing. So like, when it comes to our closets, they are color coordinated, and we go by the rainbow. So it's like Roy G. Biv, reds, orange, yellows, greens, blues. My kids organize their closets that way too. So like, when you're resetting stuff, find an order that works for you. I get lots of compliments when people randomly open my spice drawer, because it's alphabetical, and it wasn't always like that until I had to get tired of myself one day and be like, mother effer, like, every time I open this drawer, I can't find the cumin because it's like over here with the oregano. So one day I purged all my spices. I organized them and put them in alphabetical order so that I can see them all. It might be that you have like your cutlery drawer, and you have like casual dining with your people. You might even have a damn plastic cutlery drawer, and then a metal, like your good cutlery drawer. Whatever it is that works for you, you need to, when you reset it, put it back in an order that makes sense for you, and that you know where the home is. Everything has a home. So that's resetting, right? So find the order that works for you, alphabetical, color coordinated, different materials, and then put it back. Just don't throw it back, put it back.
Yeah. And I have and that's a good opportunity too, to like buy the organizers. And, like sometimes, like I get really excited about buying all the same tubs that match.
Yeah.
If I've got to get a new storage tub, I have to go to Target. It has to be the one with the purple little clips. I want them all to look the same. So it's like I'm one extreme or the other. Either it's extremely hoarder-like or it's very organized.
Yeah, I'm not quite like that. It's sometimes I like to be able to use fun containers. That's where I get wild. My containers won't always match. My containers don't always match. But like sometimes I use old things that just like, even in my pantry's organized as well with some intention or order that works for us. Like snacks are eye level for the kids so they can go find. But all my cooking oils and stuff are put in one of those like old post office box drawers. It's in like one of those. So like it's a fun opportunity to use some of that shit you should probably get rid of, but you can repurpose. But that's just, so I'm opposite in that. But I do think that if you like things to match, get the same containers for sure. But that's resetting for me. Is it needs to make sense so that you can do it over and over again, so that it's scalable. Which is why operations tends to be an easy thing for me in my work life, is that like I like to rinse, repeat, and it's almost cookie cutter, so that I don't have to think so hard when I'm like actually doing the thing.
Right. And honestly, that takes us back to like one of the stats and talking about how decluttering and less chaos, all of that leads to higher amounts of productivity, because you know where the thing is that you need to get the job done, and you're not wasting time looking for things, and you know exactly where it is, and you can go straight there, and you don't lose any productivity or distraction time on your way to get the thing or on your way to look for the thing. Because sometimes when I'm looking for the thing, I find, oh, look at this. Oh, I have a fun memory. Or, then then you end up losing time. I don't want to say wasting time, but you lose time when you don't know where things are, and you ultimately lose productivity in whatever you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So that's step 2, is resetting. It's putting it back with intention in an order that makes sense for you. And before, like all of that has to be done, or the final step of the formula doesn't like work. Like, it's plus this equals this. And so release and then reset. And what that leads to is feeling renewed, like feeling good and having this new standard of living that doesn't require you to think so hard when you're looking for something. In the work world, I call it work smarter, not harder. It's just like a matter of being able to move freely and without tripping over things and having obstacles and not being able to find the things that you need. So, yeah. What about you, Salem? What is on your list of spaces to declutter this year? Like your priorities?
Well, I could always use a refresh in my closet. It's, there's like quite a bit. And that could be done, once a year. That's an easy once a year, definite, like do the closet. But probably our junk drawers are a little overflowing with junk. And every time we open up that cabinet, it's like it just is jumping out at me. So that's probably our next area to declutter.
The junk drawer.
It's more like a junk cabinet, but that's okay.
Yes. All right.
Awesome. Well, I guess we have our to-do list. We are going to declutter and get rid of everything, and then we'll do our reset.
So your junk drawer is one of your priorities to declutter and organize this year.
Yeah, it's kind of gotten out of control.
That's okay.
I would love to be able to say that I'm going to work on the basement, um, and declutter the studio. But I mean, I did it, going back to what you said before, you've really got to dedicate more than an hour or two to this type of a project. Like it
Mhm.
is, and even like you said, 24 hours, it's going to take you more than one day to do it. And I'm kind of, because I haven't honed this skill as much as you have, or as some of my other skills, it takes me a little bit longer to go through stuff. And I have to kind of go to it more than once. Like do a first
Mm.
pass, and then I kind of have to do a second pass, because my first pass, I'm like, kind of picking the low hanging fruit, or the stuff that's kind of just floating to the top. And I see it. I'm like, oh yeah, gotta go, gotta go. And then, I'm left with all this other stuff. And so I kind of have to do like a second pass through it to get more of my nose.
Mm. That's why I think those three piles make a lot of sense when you're doing your releasing, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
yes, the no, the maybe. So instead of having to do that twice, your maybe pile may just be a lot larger,
Yeah.
like a lot larger, and you probably need an accountability partner. Like I'll just come up there every time. Um, like
Hold my
to
hand,
go
please.
that second pass, that's the maybe pile. The maybe pile is meant for the second pass through. It is not meant for you to have to go back through all the yeses and nos again. It's meant to be like that final swipe yes, swipe right, whatever the dating apps do. I wouldn't know, but swipe right, swipe left, yes, no kind of thing.
Right.
So you mentioned your basement. The basement is ours this year. My husband has finally, I think, because that's our junk drawer. Like we don't have,
Mm.
I mean, we have a small one up here, but like that's where everything goes to be out of sight, out of mind. And I think he has reached the moment of like, this is no longer acceptable, Megan. We're going to do it this year.
So
And I've purged it several times, but it's time to like truly be like, okay, this stuff will never find its way back into our house. It's not big enough. Like we're not going to move anytime soon. So it's time to go out forever.
okay, so this is an interesting question, and I'm gonna, a couple episodes ago we talked about. Well, let me start over. Whose stuff is in the basement? Your stuff or his stuff, or the girl's stuff?
Oh, all the above.
Okay, okay, because the basement. And there's a mix of everybody's stuff in our basement too. Um, and we talked about our side hustle hobby of the wedding business. Well, we collected a lot of stuff for that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
stuff that still gets used on occasion for events. But is that going to be part of your purge?
Mm-hmm. Yes. There are, hey, over these last few years, there are items out of that collection that I have used over and over and over again. Those will stay and they
Mm-hmm.
will have a new home somewhere in the basement. But there are still items down there that like they're just there, and I know they need to go. There are some things that I'm probably going to need to rehome to people versus just donating. Like there's just some pieces that can't just be donated. So it will be a process, but we've already talked about it. Like we're going to do the same thing. We're probably going to spend a whole weekend pulling everything out of the basement. In our backyard will look like a damn yard sale, but we ain't having one, so don't come here. And we will be doing the yes, no, maybe piles. And honestly, it's because we've started using our basement a lot more for like if we're doing like working on things or projects. I've been down there working out a lot more. Like I kind of been using it as my workout space. I put my cycle down there, put my yoga mat, my dumbbells. So like it's becoming a much more utilized space of the home. I don't know that it'll be like an extension of it, but it's definitely a good place for those types of things to happen. And so shit needs to go. Just
Mm.
does. It needs to go.
It
That's
is.
ours.
It's a great place for storage. I am. The last time I was down there, I remember. I mean, you had it well organized, but there was just a lot of stuff in there.
Correct. Correct. There's probably a third of that now, but I want to do it again. Like it feels so good when I walk down there and it's like nice and empty. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of like a lot of our like home and garden items are down there too. So it's very much like a unfinished basement storage area, but we want it to feel better when we walk down there to use it or to get stuff out of it. And in order to do that, we're going to have to go through the process. So,
Well,
yay,
I hope
us.
keep me updated because maybe you'll inspire me to get rid of some of that stuff because I've been hanging on to it too.
Yeah.
All the candlesticks, all the stuff. I mean, I still have stuff from my wedding, which was
Mm,
11 years ago.
it is
Um,
time.
and I think there's something to be said too, when you're hanging on to stuff, and I thought about it when you said when you were talking about formal wear, that, how often do you really have formal events? I mean, for us, we don't really go to formal events that often. So you're right. If you're going to a formal event or somebody's wedding, usually you want to buy a new dress or you want to buy a new thing, because if it's been a couple years since the last time you went somewhere like that, chances are your dress is a little bit outdated.
Yeah.
There are some like classic pieces, don't get me wrong, like the black dress, like sometimes those types of things, but sometimes you want to get something new and something fresh just to feel good and feel fun and have an excuse to go shopping. So I thought about that then, but that goes for all that stuff down in my basement too. But like the longer you keep stuff, the more out of date stuff becomes. And coming from a person who loves vintage stuff, that makes it hard to throw things away because you just love old stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I've just been holding on to it because, well, it's vintage. I
Yep.
like it because it's old. So now what do I do when it's time you really need some more room, but you don't want to get rid of all your old stuff?
You have to be like, it's kind of like, you have to rehome it. Like some of these pieces, I've had some friends be like, hey, will you help me decorate? And I've already been like, yes, I will. And now I know I can, because people appreciate how we decorate with old stuff. I can be like, ooh, they're going to take care of this piece. Like recently, a friend, I helped her redo her daughter's room, and her daughter's becoming, a young adult. And I like took one of my old globes and I was like, okay, but it's going to a good home. So some of those pieces just need to be rehomed, Salem. They'll be loved all the
I
same,
know,
but we
I
have to
know,
rehome them.
I know, I
Um,
know. Well, and I know that I mean, I could easily sell that stuff too. Like I know that
yeah,
there's a market for it. I could easily sell it. It's just kind of sad to get rid of
yeah,
it.
it
And this
is,
is
but
where
we
I
have
get
the
in trouble.
memories. Yeah, you can't take it to the grave with you, man. Just can't. So, but let's talk about how it feels when you've done the work, right?
Yeah.
This is like with any process. It's like losing weight, or it's even like when you get rid of that extra 5 to 10 pounds, how good does it feel to look in the mirror in new clothes? How good does it feel to just be walking outside and your knees not hurting? It's kind of like the same thing with clothes when it's hot, like when it's cold, hot outside, North Carolina weather. Let's talk about that for a second. Like you have to layer up, but then how good does it feel when you're kind of getting hot and you can take off the layers? That
Mhm.
that is what happens when you do release this stuff and you do a reset and it looks good and it feels good. You can live so much more freely. You can live like, and then you also have space to be creative when you decide you want to put something else new in there, right? Like, I mean, those goblets, perfect example. I've had green goblets sitting in my basement forever. And recently we did a kitchen purge of our cabinets and stuff before the holidays and all that good stuff. And I was like, you know what? Those green goblets, the shelf sat empty for probably a solid month straight because it's like, I just don't know what I want to do. So it was really nice that it felt empty. I felt like I shedded something because there was just some stuff up there that I threw up there so that it would look full. And then I was like, green goblets are something that can go there and be useful because those are now our cups. We got rid of all our other cups basically. And we put them on the shelves so that they're pretty and they're functional. And I was like, this is creative and it brings a pop of color. So you have the space for creativity if you allow it to be there. But if you don't, then you don't feel renewed. You don't feel like refreshed. You don't feel, you just got to do it. Just gotta let it go. I keep thinking of Frozen. Just gotta let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, it feels, very similar to any kind of like, honestly, like any other like home project, even, when you're creating something and you feel that sense of accomplishment and that
Yeah.
what, so you have that sense of accomplishment, plus you have the physical weight and the visible weight of that stuff kind of out of your life, which is so refreshing.
Yeah. Well, let's recap. We have step one is to pull it all out. Yes, no, maybe. Release, 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 release. Step two is you got to put the yeses back, but when you do, reset them. Give them some order, give them some purpose, define. And then step three is feel refreshed and renewed from everything that you just did. And pat yourself on the back. Or,
Oh,
yeah.
yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, I mean, just a few last words. I mean, we have um, go through them one more time, the 3 steps.
Release, reset, refresh.
Refresh. And then any kind of last words of encouragement.
You can do it. I look, I normally have a mechanism. I mean, like I've given them like this will allow you to work smarter, not harder. Your place that you live is for living, not for storage. And I think that everybody will just feel a little bit lighter if there's less shit in their house. How about that for an ending?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
Yes. Awesome. Until next time.
Until next time.